crossbody Kimura, we're basically going to be focusing on attacking the far arm. A lot of this is going to come down to weight distribution and how I'm able to manipulate this to a 2-on-1 position. So first and foremost, I'm starting off in my traditional side control. I've got good pressure on top. I'm actually going to take this arm that's underneath the head, and I'm going to trace it around, and I'm going to draw my elbow in. Okay. From this position, I'm actually going to sit, and I'm going to manipulate this arm down, pushing this to the mat, and I'm going to step over this by dropping this down and over the top. Okay, so now I've got this arm isolated. So I'm essentially across the body in this, what we would call a crucifix position. In MMA, I've got a lot of different options as far as elbows, hammer fist, different things like that. Okay. So while I'm in this position, I've got him trapped. I'm gonna post on the head. I'm gonna overreach in this arm, and I'm gonna actually drag this elbow across his sternum and drop this elbow down. So I'm not just taking this arm and I'm not just putting the elbow down. I'm overreaching and I'm dragging this elbow down, and I'm gonna drop my elbow, and I'm gonna post and separate his head away from his shoulder. Okay, so this is where I do this a little bit differently. I'm not actually trying to keep him close to me. I want to keep his arm close to me, but I want to post his head away. That's separating his shoulder away from his body. It's making him much weaker here as I'm keeping my elbow down. From this position, I'm already over the top. I'm just going to step over his head. Okay, all of my weight now is on top of my elbow, so I'm actually driving my weight on top of my elbow. If I want to be a little meaner, I can grab my own lapel and I can just drive my weight down. So right here, I can pull my elbow in even tighter, dropping it down. When I'm ready to switch to the Kimura, I switch my grips down. So I'm taking my right arm and I'm actually gonna just replace it with my left arm, okay? From here, taking the wrist, I'm gonna post the wrist, and I'm gonna pull into me, and then I'm gonna elevate. So this is another little difference that I do, is I actually will attach this to my sternum, and I'm gonna pull it up away from him. Once again, I'm trying to lengthen this. I'm trying to detach his shoulder from his body. So in this position, I'm actually going to elevate. See what that does to his posture? And what that does is that kills his range of motion. So all I have to do is just turn this just a little bit to the tap. Whereas if I'm not detaching and I'm just trying to put his wrist back here, he's got a lot more range of motion before I get a tap. Okay, so I'm not just trying to put his wrist behind his back. I wanna detach his shoulder and then turn the wrist. Okay, while I do that, I'm actually crunching my wrist down, tiny little to the tap. So a lot of times what's gonna happen is he's gonna try to bury his arm. He's gonna actually try to hold on to his own lapel. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna push all of my weight to straighten his arm out. So I'm gonna drive all of my weight down across his shoulder. Okay, so I'm not using strength. I'm not trying to straighten his arm. All I'm gonna do is just push my weight toward his shoulder. So when I do that, that's straightening his arm. Okay, the cool thing about this is I've actually got a straight arm lock here. So right now my blade is directly below, it's like right at the end of his tricep. So when I go to push weight down, that's the tap. Okay, so that's like an option from this crossbody position. Once again, we're in this crucifix. We're maintaining good heavy top control over his shoulders. So if he goes to bridge, all of my weight's up here. So when he goes to bridge, there is no movement. Whereas if I'm down here and he goes to bridge, I actually am getting moved quite a bit. Okay, once I've established this grip to the top side, once I'm here, if he's grabbing his lapel or anything like that, I've got a couple of cool options. One of my favorite ones to go to from here is something called rodeo, where I actually take his belt and I actually just lace my fingers through his belt. Okay, so you can see here I've actually got his arm trapped, and in this rodeo position I've got a lot of different options, but one of my first go-tos is I do a back step. I take his lapel and I just do this tiny, I take his lapel, and all I do is just take my elbow and I'm gonna bring my elbow to my own rib cage, and then I can just walk forward slightly. Okay, so that's one of my favorites to do, is go to this rodeo position. I always like any time where I can pin somebody and control somebody. Obviously, if we're training for a fight, like if I'm training for like anything in the street, I want to be able to pin and manipulate to be able to strike my opponent. Cool?